So, Microsoft just rebuilt Copilot Studio, and in this video, I'm going to give you all of the details of what changed and go through a live demo so you can see how the new interface looks and you can learn it for yourself. My name is Harden Rashid, Microsoft MVP, MCT, and founder of Power Academy, where we help businesses in the Microsoft and Power Platform ecosystem upskill their teams in the Power Platform and AI. And speaking of AI, we've got a huge revamp to Copilot Studio. So this new Copilot Studio experience that I'm going to go through in this video is now generally available, so that means it's ready to be used within production. Now this was only in preview a few weeks ago, so you can see the confidence that Microsoft have in these changes that they're making to Copilot Studio, that they've literally launched it so quickly from it being in a preview state. Now, of course, with that comes some questions like, is it ready? Is it actually able to be used in production? And in this video, we're going to be exploring all of the new features so you can make that decision for yourself. So the first thing I actually want to discuss is what has changed specifically within the new experience. So I have some slides to help me with that. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is the new tabs experience. So you can see on the left-hand side, we have the legacy Copilot Studio experience where we have 9 different tabs. Now, this can get very confusing. You have an overview, knowledge, tools, agents, topics, activity, evaluation, analytics, and channels, right? So it's a lot to kind of take in. It can be very overwhelming for someone to come into here, and there were questions about if this should have been consolidated. Now here on the right hand side, you can see the new tabs that's available within Copilot Studio, and you've got build, preview, evaluate, and monitor, right? So 9 tabs have been consolidated to 4 tabs. It maintains the same functionality in spirit in some regards, but you can see it gives you a bit more of a unified experience in this case. Then we're speaking about the elimination of topics. So if we go back, you can see in the old experience, we have an option called topics. Now, if we go on this slide, you can see in the new experience, this is nowhere to be seen. And it's not that topics have become legacy or anything like that right now, or are being deprecated, at least from anything that I've seen from Microsoft, but I've actually spoken to someone at Microsoft and they've given me a bit of an insight to say, do focus on using a combination of skills and workflows, and we'll get into what workflows are in a moment, for deterministic outcomes. If you are familiar with what topics used to be in Copilot Studio, they're a way to take deterministic functionality and bake them into your agents. Now going forward, in this new experience, you won't see any sort of topics. You will see a combination of skills and workflows to help you build those deterministic outcomes. So if you're building with this new experience, you won't be using topics anymore. Now, when we talk about skills, if you're familiar with Claude or you have trained any of your chatbots or GPTs or anything like that, you might be familiar with something called a skill.md file, which is a skill markdown file. Now, this has become industry standard for training these models on specific functionality that you are using on a repetitive basis. For example, if you want your agent to write a consolidated report on all of your contacts or accounts, it can do that for you in a structured and repeatable way. So every single time you get the same structure of report, and you do that through a skill markdown file. So now within the interface, these are available to be uploaded or created directly within your agent. Then we've got this shift from agent flows to workflows. So agent flows within Copilot Studio was a way to add on top of your agent and again assist you with deterministic outcomes using agentic features. It was very similar to Power Automate in that regard, but allowed you to bake in agentic features that were only available within agent flows. Now what we're seeing here is more of a unified experience that Microsoft is making. So if you look at here on the left-hand side for what resembles a workflow, this is the logo that you're actually going to see and the product that you're going to see within M365 Copilot as well. So workflows are being scaled throughout the Power Platform and Microsoft ecosystem. So rather than kind of having this weird middle ground between Power Automate and Copilot Studio, they've kind of just moved everything into workflows instead. And you can see with the screenshot here, they have completely reworked the way that workflows can be built and customized. So you can see you have this nice horizontal editor from left to right, which can also be changed to vertical down here. And overall, you just have more of a modern experience to make your authoring experience a lot more pleasant. And then of course, with workflows and with Copilot Studio as well, we have new capabilities that are available to us. So there have been changes to the product itself, for example, the orchestrator and planning modes. It's been reported that on this new interface, they are actually better and work more reliably. The Copilot Studio team have determined that skills are the best way to train these agents, so you can actually bake those into your agents now as well. So overall, the report is you can build better and more flexible agents with this new Copilot Studio experience. Of course, here I've taken a screenshot from the workflows experience. You can see you have options for human review, M365 Copilot, and these kind of note features as well available within your workflow, so you can put comments and things here. I've got a screenshot of what one of these notes look like. So you have a much nicer customizable experience within Copilot Studio now. Now, something I did want to speak about is the two experiences coexist. So if you go into Copilot Studio now, it's likely that it will default into the new experience. But if you toggle this off here on the top right hand side, it will take you to the older experience so you can manage and customize your legacy agents. It should be said that, of course, since the new experience of Copilot Studio has become generally available, it is generally best practice to use that now rather than the older experience. But if you do have existing topics or older agents that you do need to manage under the legacy experience, this is also available to do within Copilot Studio. Now, some of you might be familiar with this, but I used to speak about the 4 building blocks of an agent. Now, this has turned from 4 to 5 because with the new capability within Copilot Studio, we now have another layer of workflows which give us deterministic logic for the agent. You can see we've got knowledge here in the bottom as the foundation. We've got skills as reusable instructions which are loaded on demand and in a generative capacity by the agent. You've got tools, so what the agent can do, read, write data, call flows, call the MCP, those types of things, still available. Workflows, so we actually have deterministic logic for the agent, which is the new layer, which is kind of replacing topics as well as agent flows. And then we've got instructions here in the top layer, which is how the agent behaves, which I believe will be a centerpiece of all of our AI agents for a very long time. What we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be using all of these building blocks of building an agent and applying them into a real solution. So let's switch over to the new Copilot Studio experience so you can see how it looks. Okay, so we are now in the new Copilot Studio experience. So what you want to do is come to copilotstudio.preview.microsoft.com, and of course you can select your environment here in the bottom left-hand corner. Again, if you want to change to the older experience, you can just toggle this, just submit, press done, and it will take you to the older experience. The same goes for if you are in the old experience, you can come into the new experience by pressing this banner where it says try it now, and now we are taken to the new experience. So to start off an agent, we're just going to go ahead and press agent here in the middle. And you can see straight away we have a much different interface than we did if we were building an agent in the older Copilot Studio experience. We can give the agent a name. So this is of course quite standard. So we're just going to call this the Power Academy Sales Agent. I'm just going to put version 2 because we already have one existing from a previous demo. Then you can see the instructions are front and center for the first thing that you do once you build your agent. So of course this sets up the guardrails and persona of that particular agent. What's something to notice is this isn't just a plain text box anymore. You have features like code blocks, you have links that you can add, you have block quotes that you can add as well, numbers, bullet lists. And the real value add of all of these features is writing coherent instructions that both the agent can understand and yourself too. The idea isn't just to write one line for these instructions. You want these instructions to cover all of the main points and guardrails that actually make your agent valuable and reliable. So I have some instructions here on the left-hand side that really just goes against anything that I just said. It's going to be a very simple instruction, but it's just to show you how this works. So we've got our instructions here saying that it's a sales assistant for Power Academy. It helps the sales team understand their accounts and contacts. When asked about an account, lead with the most useful facts before creating or updating any record. Confirm the details with the user first. So now if I save this, and then I come into the preview tab here, you can see I have a new preview experience that's open to me as well. Now within the older Copilot Studio experience, the preview tab was here on the right-hand side. I do prefer this preview experience to be much more unified and very similar to Copilot or ChatGPT or Claude if you've used it with this kind of chat interface that's available to us. Of course, you can select new chat and you can also turn on and off the end user preview so you can see exactly the way your end users would perceive the way that the chats are coming through. So this will remove any sort of developer only details. So if I just ask it, what can you help me with? And press enter. Since the instructions are the only things that it can really go off, it's going to infer how it can help me using those instructions. Once I add knowledge and tools, this will be a lot more functional and a lot more responsive as well. So let's give this agent some knowledge, right? It's the Power Academy sales agent, so we want it to actually understand what Power Academy is and how the business works. So what we can do is we can add knowledge here on the right-hand side. If we click on knowledge, you can see we have different areas available from public websites to SharePoint to OneDrive for Business. And I'm sure this is just going to continuously be added to. You can also upload any sort of files or PDF documents here as well. But in this case, we're just going to select public websites. And we're going to ground it in poweracademy.com. So we're just going to copy this link, come into here and paste, and then we're just going to add. We're going to give it a name and description. Now, this will help the orchestrator in terms of when it should use this knowledge source. So I do recommend updating the name and description. It doesn't need to be the name of the link. So what I'm going to do is just copy a little code block that I've got. The name cannot contain more than 100 characters. So we're just going to move over here. And then we're just going to call this the official Power Academy website instead. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to move that longer text into the description instead. So official Power Academy website contains all programs, pricing, etc. Users to answer any question about what Power Academy offers and who it's for. And then we're going to simply add this knowledge into our agent. Now, if we go into preview and we just start a new chat and then we type in, what can you tell me about Power Academy? And enter, what you see it do is actually search its knowledge. It's going to find the website here. You can see it's given us an output as well. And if we turn the end user preview on, you can see that will disappear and we can see exactly the way the end user would perceive this. If we scroll up, it tells us what it is, who it's for, the core offerings, and also the flagship program that we now offer. We also have all of the citations across the bottom as well, which I can imagine you can turn off within the settings. So just as simple as that, that's how we add knowledge within our agents. Now we're going to use skills. And as we discussed, this is one of the genuinely newer ideas within Copilot Studio. It's a reusable instruction written in Markdown that the agent only loads when it's relevant. So you can store a number of skills in here that your agent can pick through and have a repeatable outcome for any specific process. Now, if we click onto skills, you can see I can either upload a skill or I can create a skill from blank. From here, we can add a name, a description, some instructions as well. So I'm just going to delete what's already in here and paste some instructions that I've got for a Power Academy account brief. And this is supposed to help the users brief on a specific account within the CRM. So we're going to take the name, copy, paste it here across the top. Then we're going to take the description and do the same thing. And then here you can see the instructions are written for us step by step in terms of how it can gather information, how the information should be outputted, and some different rules as well. And what we're going to do is just create. And now we have a skill available to us, but we haven't actually connected this into our CRM. So our CRM is going to use Dataverse. So if I go into Tools and I go into MCP, and I go into the Microsoft Dataverse MCP server, I can now connect into my Dataverse database. I'm going to add the MCP. You can see it was added very simply in a few clicks. And if I click on this again, you can see it's going to load me the MCP tools. Now from here, I can see different tools that are available to me, such as create table, update table, delete. And if I turn off all of the features available, I can select only what I want my users to have availability to. So for example, I don't want them to be able to create tables. I don't want them to be able to delete tables. And you can see you can have very granular control over the way that your users interact with the MCP server. So I'm going to confirm. And now within our preview feature, we are going to ask it to give us an account brief. So we're just going to go to a new chat and we're going to say, I would like a brief. So I am now in the preview area and I'm just going to ask it to give me a breakdown of all of the accounts in the system. Now I've turned off the end user preview so we can see the MCP working. You can see it's actually searched using the Dataverse MCP. It's queried. It's given us an output as well. And you can see this working step by step. And again, if we turn this on, it will remove the way that this is actually being shown. So it's giving me a quick breakdown of our current accounts. And let's say, for example, I want a briefing on Fourth Coffee. So I'm going to copy this and then just say, please give me a brief on the accounts Fourth Coffee. And what it should now do is go and use the skill. It says the skill is unnamed here, but the skill is named in our case. It's understood that this is the skill to use that we've just added. And it's given me the breakdown as we requested. It's given me the account, the key contacts, the recent activity, and also the suggested next step, which is to reach out with an introductory email or call to establish a primary contact and explore any interest in AI or Copilot training. So you can see it's followed that skill and it's given me back what I need. If we go back to build, one of the last features I want to speak to you about is the memory. And this is currently in preview, so please treat this as early. But the idea is that the agent remembers context about you across conversations. So you're not explaining or re-explaining yourself every single time. So from my understanding, this is the memory for your users who are using the agent on the other side. So if you want them to remember the interactions that they've had across different conversations, then this should be selected as on. You can see within Copilot Studio, we also have evaluate, where we can write test cases and test conversations against our agent to see if it passed those specific tests. And evaluations are basically repeatable tests that you can use to make sure that the changes that you're making to the agent aren't affecting any working use case. Then we've got monitor as well, and this only enables once we publish the agent, and this is to monitor the way the agent is performing when it's actually deployed into production. Of course, within the build area, you probably already noticed we can change the model over here. You have all of the GPT classes available and also Anthropic if they are enabled within your organization settings. And if I go to more options, you can also download the YAML of your agent over here if you want to upload it to any sort of different AI or Claude code. So we're just going to publish the agent, and if we click on the drop down, you can see we have different areas available to us. We have Teams and M365, we have a web app, we have demo website. So this is a new experience as well. So they've removed publish as its entirely different tab into something that's just in the top right-hand corner, which I think is a really welcome change. And if we just publish the agent, save and publish, we'll now be able to leverage the agent within workflows, which is the next area that we're going to be exploring. Okay, so now the agent is published, we can go into our workflows. Now, workflows are deterministic, as we discussed. It runs the same way every time. Think of a Power Automate flow with agentic capability. You can see I've created a test workflow over here, and what I'm going to do is just turn this off for now. As you can see, a very similar experience to Power Automate. And if I click on the drop down here, you can see I have these classic workflows available to me, which used to be called agent flows. But what we want to do is use the new workflow instead. So we're going to click on this, and you can see we are taken into this new workflow experience. So what we want to do for this workflow is when a new contact is added into the contact database, so this table over here, we want this workflow to trigger, to classify based on the description what product would be best for that contact. Then we want to draft an email to that person if we have their email on file. We want a human to be able to review the email before it's sent out. And if the human approves the email, then we want to send that email into the new contact that has been added to the table. Again, if you've built Power Automate flows, this will be very simple for you to get your head around. It's just a new designer, some new functionality that we're going to all go through within this video. So the first thing we're going to do is give this workflow a name. So here in the top left-hand corner, we're just going to call this new lead triage draft and approve, and we're just going to give this version 2. And press enter. And you can see the first thing that we need to do is define our trigger. Now this is very similar to the way agent flows used to work, where you defined either a manual trigger, a recurrent, a connector, or an API. In this case, we are just going to select connector because we want this to react into something landing into Dataverse. So we're going to search for our Dataverse trigger. We're going to look for the when a row is added, modified, or deleted. And then from here, very similar to Power Automate, we can determine when the flow triggers. So we're going to say when something is added. We can choose the table name. So in this case, it's going to be our contacts. Our scope is just going to be organization in this case. And we can also select columns and filter rows, very similar, just like Power Automate. So something we're going to be doing is using a new functionality called classify. And what classify allows us to do is basically determine a specific area that this contact would be categorized in. So we can determine our different categories, and then we can link if it's category 1, do this. If it's category 2, then do something else. If it's other, then do something else. So you can see, you can classify the way that your contact works within this specific flow. You can see the first thing it's asking is the input to classify. So what is it actually classifying over here? Using agentic capabilities. And in this case, we want to classify this person based on their job title, their company, and their description as well. And then if we click onto here and then we select this lightning bolt, we have dynamic content available. So here, let's say we want the job title. We're just going to click on this, search for job title over here, and you can see we have a dynamic element that's been added. The same goes for company. If we click on this, look for company, we can get the company name value. And then the same goes for description. So we insert dynamic content, write the description, and you can see now it will classify the person based on these 3 criteria. Then we can rename these different categories, right? So we're going to determine based on their job title, their company, and description, if they fall into the My Accelerator bucket, or if they fall under the B2B partner bucket. We can add a short description of what actually belongs in this category. So it understands, okay, if any of these patterns are similar, then we're going to assign them to this. So the My Accelerator, It'll be for Power Platform professionals, technical roles, people who are already in the Microsoft stack and want to advance into AI. And then partner is going to be any sort of consultancies, agencies, or anyone mentioning a team or multiple seats. This is going to be a business buyer. We also have an other option available here, but we can ignore that for now. And we also have examples that we can add to improve the classification accuracy. So what is an example of someone landing in the My Accelerator bucket or someone landing in the B2B partner bucket? For example, if I do add example and then press My Accelerator fit, and then I have a description here of someone who would fit into the MAI Accelerator, is a Power Platform developer. And if I add another example for the B2B partner, and then say this is a good example of someone who's a B2B partner, then this gives us the reliability that it will actually assign the category correctly. And you can keep adding these as far as you'd like. Something I didn't mention here is you can also define the model that you're going to use to actually classify these different areas. Now, it's recommended that you use one of the mini models because they're a little bit cheaper. And for something as simple as classification, these are usually the default that you want to select. So we're good with this for now. The next thing we want to do is draft an email for the contact that has just landed in the system. So what I want to do, since we just created our agent, which contains all of the knowledge about Power Academy, about the sales data, I want to use that agent to summarize the email within this workflow. So what I'm going to do is call the agent over here. So I'm going to click and drag. You can see over here, I can create a new agent for this particular workflow, or in my case, what I'm going to do is leverage the Power Academy Sales Agent version 2. So now I'm going to define the message that I'm going to send to the agent so then it can return the email drafted for me. So I'm going to give it a prompt. So here on the first line, we've said a new contact has joined, segmented as, and we're going to put the dynamic classify output. So again, similar to Power Automate, we can insert dynamic content and we can use the category of what's actually been classified. And then what we also want to do is take these and then just chime them onto this agent over here. Then we're going to give their details, right? So their name, the company, the title. So we're just going to write a list over here. So contact name, company, and title. And then we're going to add dynamic elements over here as well. So dynamic, full name, put it here, company, over here, and then job title over here. Going to rename this. And then something I forgot to add is the description as well. So we're going to add the description of the contact too. Then we're going to tell the agent, using a knowledge of Power Academy programs, draft a short, warm welcome email tailored to that segment. Point them to the single most relevant next step, return just the email body. So now what we've done is we've pushed the data and the classification that we've got from this workflow into our sales agent. It's going to draft us an email, and then we're going to be able to leverage the email within this workflow. Then the next thing we want to do is, just because we don't want to send emails that are incorrect for whatever reason, is we want to have some human in the loop gating. So we're going to use this human review action here on the left-hand side. So we're going to take this, drag it over here, right next to the agent. You can see it requires some setup here, such as the title and the message, who it's assigned to, so who's actually going to review this, and the channel as well, where we can send it either on Outlooks via email or Teams via Teams message. In this case, the title is going to be Approve Welcome Email for New Lead. We're going to delete the contact name, and then we're going to insert the dynamic contact name here. So we're just going to have the full name. Then the message is going to contain the classification of the contact and also the email of the contact. So we're going to add the classification and email as we've said. So what I'm going to do is get the dynamic classification here of the category. And then here in the bottom, we are going to take the email that was generated from the agent. So if I go to agent and then take the result, this will give us the email, so then the person can review it and determine if they want this email sent or not. Then we're going to assign it to my account, just testing over here. I'm sure this would be dynamic if this was an actual solution. And then inputs, right? So what is the person who's going to be sent this going to feedback into this workflow, which would then continue or not continue the next steps? And in this case, we're just going to say a yes or no Boolean. We're just going to call this approve or reject. And then please select yes or no as the description is fine. And then now a human can actually go and check this email before it's sent out. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add an if-else statement. And then we're going to say if, using the dynamic content here. And we're going to take the input from the human review. So if approve or reject equals yes, so it's approved. what we want to do is we want to send the email to the contact. We're going to see all actions for Outlook, and then we're going to go to send an email. Click on this. We're going to send this to ourselves. We're just going to put the subject as test for now, and then we're just going to put the body as the result from the agent. If the email is rejected, what we'll do in this case, just for simplicity, is we will end the automation and the status run will be cancelled. And just like that, we have our end-to-end build. So when a contact is added, it should run through this workflow and determine if the workflow should end or if an email should be sent. So now what we're going to do is save. We're going to publish. Then after the workflow is published, we are going to select test. And then now it's going to wait for the trigger event to work and then trigger this flow. So what we're going to need to do is add a contact into our contact table. You can see I've been testing this a few times. So we're just going to use the description as a Power Platform developer looking to learn AI. We're going to put my name, and then we're going to put test 6. Click off this, you can see it's saving. And if we go back to Copilot Studio, it should run this flow for us. You can see the flow is triggered successfully, and step by step, it will run through the loop all the way up until it needs human review. It says it's found that it's an MII accelerator fit. It's passing the category to the agent who will then draft the email. You can see now the agent has been successful and it's passed over to human review. Now, if I go into my emails and give it a refresh, you can see once the agent section has finished, it's moved on to human review. And if I go into my emails, you can see it gives me the email here as well. Now, obviously, the email, you have to take it with a grain of salt. It's not perfect. Of course, you'd reframe this, make it a little bit better. In this case, let's say we're not happy with it and we want to reject the email. We can press no. But then we can also press yes to accept the email over here as we've configured. So let's say we've approved the email and now we press submit. We're happy with that. And if we go into Copilot Studio, you can see we've got another email hinting that this flow has been successful, and we should see ticks all across the board, and we do here. Human review has been successful. It's a yes. So now we have the email available to us. So there we go. That was the new Copilot Studio interface. Now, as you can see, a lot has changed, and this space is just going to continuously get investment. Honestly, a few weeks ago, I released a Copilot Studio Foundations course on the older designer, and now it feels like I have to redo all of that because we've got this newer designer. But it's exciting because it means the technology is getting better. So I'm super curious what you think about this yourselves. If you've had an experiment with it, if this is the first time you're hearing about it, what do you think? How do you think it looks? Do you have any reservations? Do you have anything you like, what you don't like? I'd love to hear from you, so please leave them in the comments. And yeah, I think that's it for now. So thank you very much for staying tuned. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments as well. And if you want my free collection of Power Platform and agent resources, click the top link in the description and you'll be taken to Power Academy, where you can make a free account and you have access to my Copilot Studio Foundations course and all of our other courses and products as well. But thank you for staying tuned, and yeah, take it easy.